It's back. Hello, viewers. My name is Zach Hardy, and this is episode 6 of the Hardyac Wrestling Podcast. It has been almost a full year since the last Hardyac Wrestling Podcast, and I've finally figured out a schedule and format to do these podcasts on. So let me announce that before I get into anything else. The Hardyac Wrestling Podcast will now be a monthly podcast, and I hope to keep my word on that. It'll be a monthly podcast that will take place on any day within the final week of the month. So this just so happened to be the Sunday, the final Sunday in the month of May, May 29th, 2016, episode 6 of the Hardyac Wrestling Podcast. We've got a lot of shit to talk about, but before we get into that, let me just plug myself here. If you have any questions for the Hardyac Questions and Answers series, please send them. Any wrestling related questions? I'm sorry. If you have any questions, non-wrestling related for the Hardyac Questions and Answers series, or any wrestling related questions for the Hardyac Wrestling Podcast, please remember to send them to either send them to my email unitards@gmail.com, send them to me on Twitter at the bottom of the screen here, Twitter at Zachary Serum, at ZACHARYSERRA, or put them in the comments below, and I'll get to them in a future episode. So, guys, we got a lot to get to in the Hardyac Wrestling Podcast, episode number 6. Let me just run down the line. We have to talk about BP Fierce, MC4, Lane, and Zeus Fitzgerald all being re-signed to Ultimate Showcase Wrestling, along with Rex Garrigan being signed to Ultimate Showcase Wrestling. WWE releases that happened much of them earlier in the month of May. Simon Saint requesting his release from Ultimate Showcase Wrestling. Ultimate Showcase Wrestling's 2016 pay-per-view lineup. The brand split between Raw and SmackDown, SmackDown going live, and a lot of questions to get to since I haven't answered many of them for a number of months. So let's get first off into the re-signing of BP Fierce, MC4, Lane, and Zeus Fitzgerald. I apologize if the wind gets a little bit crazy. Nothing much I can do about that. But anyway, U.S. Ultimate Showcase Wrestling earlier this month re-signed BP Fierce, MC4, Lane, and Zeus Fitzgerald to developmental contracts, the same type of contract that Rex Garrigan was signed to, and I'll get to him after this. But it was really a step forward for Ultimate Showcase Wrestling just in general. Most of these guys being released in 2014 or 2015 during the beginning of 2014 or 2015 when USW really starts releasing those that they don't see fit on the roster, with the exception of Zeus Fitzgerald, who was released in 2013 or near the end of 2013. All of these performers were very good wrestlers overall. They just did not necessarily fit Ultimate Showcase Wrestling's mold. I mean, I could say otherwise for BP Fierce, but MC4, Lane, and Zeus Fitzgerald never really fit the mold or the build for what makes USW performer a USW performer. However, going down their accomplishments, BP Fierce is a former Blue Belt champion. MC4 is a former Extreme champion. Lane was a former Extreme Championship contender, and Zeus Fitzgerald also had a very great tag team and feud with Majigeta in 2013 before it was released. I would just kind of like to go down the line and talk a little bit about these re-signings, all of which great re-signings. I think Ultimate Showcase Wrestling realizes that they have some potential, and bringing them back in, they can do something with them. Hopefully they don't drop the ball with them again. But just getting into the performers, first we have Zeus Fitzgerald. Showed a lot of promise with his team with Majigeta. That team didn't last too long. It turned into a feud with Majigeta, which was also great. Lasted all of about 2 months. Majigeta got the upper hand, but then Zeus Fitzgerald kind of faded away off, programming and below the mid card, below the undercard, and was just, released. And they didn't see very much fit for him. And that's sad because he was a very talented wrestler. He was a big man, but he could also be very agile in the ring. So, bringing him back gives that state of, big men in USW having a spot and a contention to fight for. We go with Lane, who was a former contender for the Extreme Championship, especially during the time that MC4 held it. Overall, just a great wrestler. Had one of the best finishing maneuvers. One of the most simplistic wrestling maneuvers, but one of the most realistic, one of the most effective-looking finishers. Earned him the Golden Award in 2014 for the best finisher of the year. contender for the Extreme Championship. He could have been a great blue belt champion, great Extreme champion. Honestly, had he found a great fit with a partner, he could have been a great USW Tag Team Champion. I'm glad you're bringing back Lane. He may not have been the tallest guy, he may not have been the shortest guy, but he was very agile, very athletic, a great high flyer. He just did great shit in the ring. He was a master. He started mastering technical wrestling more towards the end of his time with Ultimate Showcase Wrestling. In his first stint with them. So I'm glad they're bringing him back. He's got a lot of promise, and I'm glad they're going to see that and hopefully push that towards the future. MC4, former Extreme Champion, especially. It's worth noting that for very long, he was the longest reigning Extreme Champion of all time. Actually, he is currently the longest reigning Extreme Champion of all time, and at one point held the most reigns as Extreme Champion that he shared with Crimson Red, who was still in the promotion. He was very promising, very athletic, especially for his size and stature, 6'4", 230 pounds. Great overall technical and submission wrestler. He could pull off some high-flying maneuvers. He could be technical when he needed to be. He could put on a great wrestling match, and I'm glad that he sees promise and USW sees fit in him again. BP Fierce, out of the four performers on this list, BP Fierce was the one that I think could have made the most impact in Ultimate Showcase Wrestling overall before his release in early 2015. Former blue belt champion, former contender for the Extreme Championship, former contender for the USW Tag Team Championship, then known as the Unified USW Tag Team Championship. Could have been a world heavyweight champion had he been given the proper or the necessary. I'm sorry, he was a former world heavyweight champion. Let me just write that down. Could have been a great USW champion. That's where I meant to go with that. Had he been given the right to work with and just been treated as an overall important face in the promotion. Sadly, swam around the mid-card much after his world championship reign, which is where he picked up the blue belt championship for one point. Most memorable match was in 2014 was himself against James and Enigma for the blue belt championship at No Remorse 2015. Oh, I'm sorry, 2014 after the Call to Greatness 9 pay-per-view event. All around, great performer, great fit for USW, still a great fit for USW. He's been well on the independent circuit since the beginning of 2015, and I'm glad they're bringing him back. All four of these performers are great re-signings, very important, could have a very big part to play in USW, especially in their developmental territory, where all four of the performers will be headed to fight with the likes of Suzuki Karakashi, Adam Starr. Get away, please. Adam Starr, Jacob Gills, Rob O'Shaughnessy, etc. The list goes on. And I think they'll be a great veteran fit in the developmental roster, kind of like what Rhino was in NXT. So there's that. And after that topic, well, just overall real thoughts. I see BP Fierce going and doing something important in USW from here and out. MC4, I can see. I mean, all of these performers will probably be brought up to the main roster again, but BP Fierce I see going really far in the main roster, especially after his debut. They're talking about him being put in the Legion, which I'm iffy about, but if it works out, if there's a proper story to tell, then I'm all for it. MC4, they're saying that he should be that mid card performer to really boost up what I believe is going to be the next gen television championship, which is their mid card championship. I'm fine with that. Build that up, bring a veteran instinct to it, and put him back on the main roster. Lane, I think he will be a great mid-card performer, could have a shot at the next-gen championship, and once he's off of that little stint, I can see him being brought back up to the main roster without a problem at all. Let me just get this ant. Just get this ant off of the table. Okay. So yes, I see a lot of great things happening for Lane in his future, especially with the mid card and the way that he can be booked. And Zeus Fitzgerald, I think he will be swimming around in the next generation developmental system for a little bit. He's still not where he needs to be on tasks with becoming a main roster performer with Ultimate Showcase Wrestling, but if he gets down, he needs to get down, improving and probably mastering his powerhouse ability with the addition of submission and technical wrestling, he can be great all around the ring and be just awesome on the main roster. And I think what they're going to do with him is put him um, in a little program with Majigeta once he gets up to the main roster, kind of, give Majigeta something to do. Because he's really running out of options, and that looks like maybe a face turn is coming up soon. But anyway, all these performers are going to do great, especially in the developmental system. They'll be great veterans to work against, and I'm really looking forward to it. So, next topic we get into is Rex Garrigan being signed to Ultimate Showcase Wrestling. We haven't seen him work under the Reese family branch in professional wrestling since 2011 when he departed from Whacked Out Wrestling. He was a 3-time WOW or Whacked Out Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion and a 2-time Whacked Out Wrestling Tag Team Champion with Sunkist. He was he started in the promotion, and much like myself, when he won the World Heavyweight Championship, he was still very green at the time. He was all right on the microphone. He was decent in the ring, but he really needed to improve. And after leaving Whacked Out Wrestling in 2011, he sought ventures elsewhere, especially in the independent circuit. Was signed to Stardom Wrestling for a year, where he worked under the same name of Rex Garrigan. And never won a championship there, but really kind of tried to master his art and his craft for a while, and it really gave him the chance to do something effective in professional wrestling. And after that, going back onto the independent circuit until being re-signed, or until being signed by Ultimate Showcase Wrestling in 2016, May 2016. I see so many great things. Sorry. I see so many great things happening for Rex Garrigan in USW. Putting him down in the developmental territory will probably give him an advantage and leverage as a veteran over BP Fierce, MC4, Lane, and Zeus Fitzgerald, as the fact that he is one of those real only exceptions to USW homegrown talent where Whacked Out Wrestling also played a factor. I mean, the only other performers you can say Whacked Out Wrestling played a factor in were myself, Zach Hardy, Cannon, Majigeta, Yaya Joe, Western Light, Morbid, and Derek Carter. Those 7, and Rex Garrigan is 8, or is number 8. I like the fact that you're bringing back Rex Garrigan, especially now that he's less green. He's actually really good on the microphone. He's pretty good in the ring. And I think giving him a chance in a stage bigger than what Whacked Out Wrestling was at the time with Ultimate Showcase Wrestling, there have been so many differences between Whacked Out Wrestling and Ultimate Showcase Wrestling since 2011. Whacked Out Wrestling was nearing its final couple of years. It was gaining it was gaining heat. It was getting local sponsors, but now what USW has become is, it's gained heat. It's become more known than what an independent circuit would really be known for. It's gotten pretty big sponsorships from the likes of of Best Buy, Sonic. It's gotten a couple of video game sponsorships. Evolve was one of them. But excuse me. Rex Garrigan, a lot of things have changed since Whacked Out Wrestling, and I think the biggest challenge for Rex Garrigan would be, taking what he did on the independent circuit, which is why he was signed after all, taking what he learned and did and accomplished on the independent circuit and transitioning it into USW, to Ultimate Showcase Wrestling. Because I guarantee you, Ultimate Showcase Wrestling signed Rex Garrigan for what he did on the independent circuit and not for what he did in Whacked Out Wrestling. Otherwise, Rex Garrigan would probably have been called up in 2013, 2014, 2015. It wouldn't have taken 3 or 4 years since the launch of USW to really look into Rex Garrigan as a whole. So obviously, it's for what he did in the independent circuit, and the big challenge is going to be transitioning what he did on the independent circuit into what he will do with Ultimate Showcase Wrestling. Let me just put it on battery saver mode. All right. So, with that being said, we move on from Rex Garrigan and we go into WWE territory. In May, there have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 releases as of now. I mean, there's still 2 days, technically 3 days in full, left in the calendar month of May. And we're going to get to all of them. And we're just going to talk about them a little bit. Anyway, first, Zeb Coulter. You know what? Honestly, I liked his stint better when he was, Dutch Mantel. I really didn't care for the Zeb Coulter character. I thought it was, I thought they found something interesting for him to do with Jack Swagger and Cesaro as the real Americans, and just Jack Swagger in general. Now being released, I think he has a little bit more opportunity to venture into independent wrestling, which is what I think he fits into best. Um, Hornswoggle and El Torito in general, they really, I mean, Hornswoggle did whatever he did, or whatever he could in WWE, and I mean, I guess El Torito did as well. But really, all they were good for were valets, since the WWE doesn't look too highly upon um, short stature professional wrestling. Um, or dwarf wrestling. I don't know what you want to say. But you know what? Hornswoggle, for what he accomplished in WWE, props to him. And every storyline he was been into, with the exception of the Mr. McMahon or Vince McMahon's illegitimate son, props to him. El Torito, props to you for doing whatever you have done. Excuse me, in WWE, and more power to you. Santino Marella, I was surprised he was still signed. I guess he was signed as a backstage talent or a professional wrestler, and he did retire a couple of years ago, or a year or two maybe. Not really surprised at his release. Never mind. Cameron, honestly, I never cared too much for Cameron. Whether she was on Tough Enough or the Funkadactyls or the Girl Bye gimmick. Honestly, I think the Girl Bye gimmick was her most notable piece of work in WWE. It was kind of a gimmick of her own. It was somewhat unique. She would play it well, but she was just not overall a good wrestler. And honestly, the biggest red flag was not, as many people would say, when she said that Melina and Alicia Fox was her favorite match, and she couldn't think of any other better ones. To me, the biggest red flag was when she said she was new to the business overall, which in my mind, when she was on Tough Enough and she said, she was new to the business, it was more for exposure and not to become a professional wrestler. It's not a lifelong dream. It's not a goal of hers. She would have been watching for a couple of years at that point in time, had that been a goal of hers. It was really just for exposure. She got whatever she could out of it, and it was just stupid to keep around for this long. She wasn't even a good wrestler overall. Honestly, I take her over Dana Brooke, because at least Cameron can hold a character. But overall, you didn't need her. She shouldn't be there. Alex Riley, honestly, he probably would still be in the WWE right now had he stayed as a color commentator, whether on NXT or on the main roster or anything. But getting back into the ring, it kind of exposed him, even more for the injuries that have plagued his career as of now, and as of late. So getting back into the ring was probably the worst decision Alex Riley could have made, unless he wanted to get out of the WWE, which in that case probably one of his more progressive decisions. Anyway, now into the top or the big four. I'm sorry, Adam Rose. Adam Rose released after the accusal of domestic abuse towards his wife. I honestly don't care whether they're true or not. It's a bad hit to WWE's PR. Honestly, I'm surprised they even suspended him indefinitely before releasing him. They should have just released him on the spot. But you know what? If it's true, I wouldn't want Adam Rose in the WWE anyway. I mean, domestic abuse is just a horrible, shitty thing. I've had shitty girlfriends before. And you know what? Never once has it crossed my mind to assault them or even lay a hand on them. It's never once crossed my mind. It never will cross my mind. No matter how shitty somebody may be or some situation may be, there's always a better way to get out of it than violence, and that includes wrestling in general. That's pretty much built around fighting. But overall, if it's true, he really shouldn't be in the WWE. I wouldn't want someone like that to be signed or a part of such a big promotion that is the WWE. I wouldn't even want him to be a part of USW. I just think it's a horrible thing. Assault, whether it's on a minor or on anybody that's not out of self-defense, it's just wrong in my opinion. And sorry, and it's wrong. I don't agree with it one bit. There's better ways to get out of it, and you could tell by his you could tell by his mugshot that he's a very unwell man, or at least was very unwell. Apparently, he was suspended for medication that related to ADHD. Honestly, it doesn't matter if it's true. Shame on him. If it's not true, you know what? It is true. We're not even going to go into it. It's not true. It more than likely is. Either way, he deserved to be released before he was even suspended indefinitely. Before a day had passed since the incident, he should have been released. That's just my opinion. USW would have done the same thing. I would have done the same thing. TNA may have done the same. No, never mind. Ring of Honor probably would have. Any promotion really should have done the same thing. And hopefully he gets his life straightened and in order. All right, top four I want to talk about. First one, Eden. Eden Styles, or AKA Brandy Rhodes. I'm sorry, Brandy Runnels, the wife of Cody Rhodes, who we'll get to in a minute. More. Requested her release from the WWE about a day or two after her husband had. Props to her. That's what a real. To be honest, that's what a real wife would do. You know what? If, especially considering she probably would have gotten that AJ Lee treatment because Cody Rhodes left, badmouthed the WWE. It was a smart move by Eden overall, but I'm sorry, Brandy Runnels overall. But just in general, props to her. What a wife, what a woman. That's all I can say. On second performer, Cody Rhodes, aka Cody Runnels, son of the late great Dusty Rhodes. Honestly, I don't blame Cody Rhodes for a second for leaving the WWE if what he claims to be true is true. You know, wanting to get out of the Stardust character for numerous months, not being heard by creative, not being treated like you matter. That's just something that any wrestling promotion should not do. They should treat their performers like they matter. They're what keep the promotion running. So obviously they matter. They have a voice. They earn so much more than just what they receive. And props to Cody Rhodes, or I'm sorry, Cody Runnels. I'm sorry, Cody Runnels for his decision. Props to his wife. Sadly, it's a shame that Mr. Runnels or Cody had to be released or had to leave the WWE for his voice to be heard, etc. It's just a shame he had to leave. He's such a talented star. Great worker, and overall, he's going to do great on his own. Third person, Wade Barrett. Obviously, he was, it was rumored that he was not going to re-sign with his contract with the WWE in the summer of 2016, so they just dished him out beforehand. Apparently, he's going to be working on stuff and ventures other than WWE, or I'm sorry, other than wrestling for the next while. But once he gets back into wrestling, which I'm sure he will, I'm sure he'll do great. He'll be one of the best indie darlings out there. And props to Stu Bennett for his decision. Damien Sandow is the last one we're going to talk about, and honestly, Damien Sandow deserved so much more than he got. He was given all of these cheesy, stupid, comedic angles to work with, and it was just way less than he deserved. He was a great overall in-ring competitor. He was great on the microphone. He could actually get over. And it's a shame that it's just a shame that a guy like Damien Sandow, who could get over on his own, gets released, and a guy like Roman Reigns, who can't get over, period, not even with anybody's help, not even with The Rock's help, is the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. It's just It's just pathetic. It's sad. It's stupid. Damian Sandow deserves so much more than what he got. Um, and he'll be one of the best performers you see on the independent circuit. I can almost assure you that. So switching gears from WWE releases, we have two more things to get to in USW before the rest is WWE related, part of the questions. But Simon Saint requests his release from Ultimate Showcase Wrestling, and it was confirmed a couple of days afterwards. He cited character direction and backstage politics for his request to be released. And tonight being USW No Remorse 2016, honestly, it looks like that's what's going to happen. It looks like after his match with Crimson Red tonight, he either tonight or tomorrow morning or tomorrow in general, it'll be announced that he's released. He'll probably be released, and it's just a shame. He is overall a great technical wrestler, great high flyer. He's great in the submission, great submission wrestler. He holds a great character. He holds just great microphone. He's overall borderline what you expect from a USW performer. It's a shame he has nothing really to work with, and if he does have something to work with, it's just not what he looks for. It's just not what he wants, and honestly, backstage politics, I can't blame him for. Sorry for the microphone issues. Can't blame him for. With my time in USW, I've heard so many complaints about backstage politics, how people could not get along, did not get along. They would resolve the issues from time to time, but I always saw Simon Saint just wanting to be alone. He was kind of like a loner at heart, and if he really does want to leave USW, let him do so. And that's honestly all I can say. He's a great performer. Overall, just a great guy, and glad I got to perform with him in the same ring as him. I'm just glad, and I hope he does whatever he. I hope he does and gets and receives the best from whatever he does in the future. Final USW topic of the podcast. USW has released its 2016 pay-per-view lineup. Of course, they did so back in mid-2015. However, those pay-per-views got rescheduled and shifted around. Now we have the new list here with me. First off, on June 6th, Warzone 1, which is the second of 3 overall multi-brand pay-per-views that split between intensity and severity. It'll be taking place in Newport, Rhode Island. June 26th, Hellfire, which is an intensity pay-per-view, will be taking place in Lewiston, Maine. So I look forward to that. July 31st, Ultimate Consequence, which is a severity pay-per-view, will be taking place in Nashua, New Hampshire. August 28th, Capital Carnage, which is an intensity pay-per-view, will be taking place in Burlington, Vermont. September 25th, Agony, which is a severity pay-per-view, will be taking place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Excuse me. October 30th, Retaliation, which is an intensity pay-per-view, will be taking place in Newark, New Jersey. November 27th, Bulletproof 9, which is the third of 3 multi-brand, which means splits between intensity and severity pay-per-view, will take place in Rochester, New York. And December 25th, 2016, USW Aftershock, which is a severity pay-per-view, will end the USW calendar year pay-per-views in Buffalo, New York. Get your tickets ready. I'm sure the show will be great. Or all shows will be great. We have a couple more things to talk about, all wrestling related. We have a female Money in the Bank ladder match to get to, the brand split, and the SmackDown going live. Before we get into questions, we have quite a few of them. And let's just first get into the female Money in the Bank ladder match. My thoughts overall on the idea of a female Money in the Bank ladder match is I think it's great to expose the female division more like you showcase the men's division. I think giving them more options to work with, maybe a no disqualification match or a submission match or a Money in the Bank match or a ladder match or a cage match, I think they do great for the women's division, especially for those who can compete at that level and can pull off some of the things that the men can pull off in those types of matches. Overall, in my opinion, there are some people that I would like to think could be involved in the Money in the Bank female Money in the Bank ladder match. Bailey, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, Dana Brooke, etc. Paige, Naomi, Tamina, all of which could be great in a female Money in the Bank ladder match. Overall, in my opinion, I think the briefcase would go to Sasha Banks. I just think that with Sasha Banks being as loved by the fans as she is to the current level right now, it'd be stupid not to give her this win. Or if it were to happen, she's just an overall great in-ring female competitor, great in-ring wrestler, and this would be the perfect way to give her a women's championship shot at any point in time. She not only could offer you a great, well, here's a get out of jail free card, but also a great way to not only make a good get out of jail free card, but also give the fans what they want at the same time. So it's not like Sheamus in 2015. So that's all I have in the female Money in the Bank ladder match. I can't really say much more because it's not confirmed yet. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. We have the brand split to get to, and honestly, I will try to make my own mock draft for the WWE brand split. But I want to give you my top 3 picks for Raw and SmackDown right now, just that way you know. On Raw, I've got Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Cesaro. SmackDown, I've got John Cena, Dean Ambrose, and AJ Styles. I'll give you the reasons for why. Roman Reigns on Raw, just because he is the future of the WWE, sadly, because that's Vince McMahon's image. That's what he would like you to think. And if you think along those same lines, please, I ask you right now, stop touching yourself to that picture of Roman Reigns that you have on your computer screen or your phone screen or whatever. It's not healthy. Stop, please. Roman Reigns just being the future and what Vince McMahon imagines would be the ideal choice for Monday Night Raw. Seth Rollins is behind him because he is overall one of the top guys you have on your roster. This bug better not get the fuck off. Um, and he'd just be a great fit to keep on Raw. He's just better on Raw than what he could be on SmackDown. And we have Cesaro just because I think that would be the greatest way to give one of the top 3 chances to a current mid card level performer. SmackDown, we have John Cena just because he was the face and now is kind of fading out. But SmackDown is a great way to keep him as the top face, while letting Roman Reigns be the face of another promotion. Dean Ambrose in second just because he's a better fit on SmackDown than what he could be on Raw, and that's just the way I imagine it. And AJ Styles for the same reason. He just seems to me as a better fit for SmackDown than he would be for Raw. And finally, SmackDown going live. It'll be airing on Tuesdays from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or I'm sorry, 8 to 10 p.m. in general. I'm sorry, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. At least that's what I understand. It'll have its own roster and possibly its own championships. In my opinion, I would say keep the the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, Women's Championship, and Tag Team Championship separate. I'm sorry, on both shows, and put the Intercontinental Championship and United States Championship on their own distinct shows. So now we have the questions, which is one of the biggest things that you guys have sent me. Insert penis joke here. I'll try to get through them as fast as I can, but then again, I want this podcast to be, on the long side because I haven't done it for a while, and usually podcasts stretch an hour. So I'll just answer them the way I normally answer questions. So first question I have, and I'm not going to name usernames because, yeah. I wouldn't want to give out usernames when people don't want me to give out their usernames. But you know what? Before we get into that, let me just put out another little little free advertisement out because it's my channel. If you have any questions for the Hardyac Wrestling Podcast or any wrestling-related questions for the Hardyac Wrestling Podcast, please send them to either unitards@gmail.com. That's unitards with two Z's at the end at gmail.com. Send them to me on Twitter at Zachary either in the direct messages or DMs, or just tweet them to me. Or you can leave them in the comments below, and I'll put them in, select them, and read them in a future episode. So anyway, first question. It's split between two questions. Who is the most overrated wrestler in USW, and who is the most underrated wrestler in USW? In my opinion, currently the most overrated wrestler in USW would be Capital, just because he hasn't done much since getting out of that main event picture or that World Heavyweight Championship picture. Go fuck away, you stupid fucking cunt. Anyway, just because he hasn't done much overall since losing the World Heavyweight Championship, since being exited out of the main event picture, I just think he's seen in too bright of a light. Even for now, he hasn't been pulling off much. The best thing he had to work with was 2 feuds against Seth in respective respective times since losing that stature of main eventer or world champion, and that's why I consider him the most overrated wrestler in USW right now. Most underrated wrestler in USW right now is Chris Ross, in my opinion. He is a former 4-time world heavyweight champion. I know, shocking, right? And right now he's just slumming around in the mid card. I mean, he's building up a run towards the international championship and against Yo-Yo Joe, which is awesome. I think he can do a lot of wonders with that belt, and once losing it, could head into the World Heavyweight Championship picture. However, in my opinion, he's just not being used and hasn't been used to his fullest extent since 2014. I'm sorry, maybe even 2013, losing the World Heavyweight Championship and just swimming around either in the mid cards for the blue belt title or the international title, or in his team with Philip Akron. Or his team with Alexander Rotten. He's just not been utilized the way he should be, and he's just such a great wrestler. He's so athletic for his height. 7'1". Go the fuck. Didn't fucking kill you. Anyway, 7'1", so athletic, so gifted, so agile, such a powerhouse, such a submission. He's great on the microphone, and the fact he even has the best nickname in USW history, probably, with Tall Man Chris Ross. Overall, just a great performer, so underutilized, so underrated, and that's why I give him that title. Next question: best powerhouse in USW right now. God damn, I didn't kill him. My opinion, or the performer I select in that range is Wolf Granger, just because he's a cruiserweight, which you don't expect much from power. Expect much power from those kinds of performers. He's one of the most dominant on the Severity roster. He's making his name known. He's coming across as one of the most feared and revered performers in USW as of right now, and he is on his way to a world championship shot or an international championship shot. He's just on his way to great things, and I've got the best powerhouse in USW. I've got that title going for Wolf Granger. Who is the most impressive wrestler in WWE? I've got Cesaro, just because, I mean, he's the strongest performer, probably the strongest performer you have there, or in the promotion. And usually, when you expect to hear strongest wrestler, you think big, tough, muscular, not me kind of wrestlers. Somebody who could break me in half. But Cesaro's not really that kind of. He's athletic. He's agile. He's great with technical wrestling, and he could be a high flyer. Hell, he is just a strong. He's just such an impressive wrestler. He doesn't have the physique of a strong human being. But with that strength comes agility, comes endurance, comes just an array of talent. And you know what? He's getting better on the microphone. He's getting a better character overall. He's becoming more developed. And honestly, I see him striving in the main event picture sooner rather than later. So I guess Cesaro is the most impressive wrestler in WWE right now. What defunct WWE championship would you bring back? I would bring back the Hardcore Championship, just because it gives you a sense of, I don't know, intrigue and interest in the championship. It makes it a little bit more important now that since it has a stipulation. The Extreme Championship in USW used to have something along the lines of a portion where you would just fight for the belt, and it would be held mostly under no disqualification rules, but also could have some specialty in it. And I would bring back the Hardcore Championship because it would just bring so much intrigue to WWE television and programming. And if it's not the Hardcore Championship, probably the Television Championship. Just I don't know. Why wouldn't you? What 5 WWE performers would you bring to USW? Easy. Cesaro, Kevin Owens, Neville, Sami Zayn, and Chris Jericho. Cesaro, he's just so gifted in the ring, and he could be molded into someone great on the microphone. Could have a great character. He could work out perfectly in USW. Kevin Owens, because even though he doesn't fit necessarily what USW has in mind, he fits what USW has in mind to a wrestler in general. Not the overall image, whether it's lean or in shape, or not necessarily buff, but, conditioned. Kevin Owens doesn't appear that way, but he's so gifted in the ring, so gifted on the microphone, great heel. Honestly, he would be an easy main eventer with USW. Neville, same reason. Lean, in shape, conditioned, high flying god. He's like what Seth used to be in the beginning of his career with USW. So gifted, so talented, so promising. Um, um, who's the other one I said? Go ahead. Oh, Sami Zayn. He doesn't appear again. You know what? He actually does appear to USW's kind of stature, whether it's lean or in shape or conditioned. But you know what? He's also great on the microphone. He's so talented. He's so over with the crowd, and USW would just love that. He would fit perfectly with the mold. And Chris Jericho, just for that veteran instinct. He's on the older side, but he can do many, if not all, of the moves he used to do. He's so capable and conditioned in the ring, and you know what? He'd just be a great veteran in USW. Who is your favorite member of the Bullet Club? Easy, the Young Bucks. I was gonna get a Super Kick Party T-shirt. I was gonna get a Young Bucks Bullet Club T-shirt. The Young Bucks overall, no need to explain. The Young Bucks. What would you rename the club to? This is the group formerly consisting of AJ Styles, currently consisting of Luke Gallows or Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson. I will call them the Wolves Den. I don't have any reason behind it. Just sounds cool. Better than the club. Excuse me. Best wrestler nickname in USW history. Hence why I said it earlier. Tall Man. Which stemmed from Tall Man Chris Ross. Because as little as its creativeness and personality it described Chris Ross to a T. He used it in his name, in his entrance, in his ring gear, or on his ring gear, in his in his build from or his entrance, whatever. Tall Man Chris Ross just it stuck around. It's still around today, just not necessarily as it was before. Tall Man Chris Ross, best nickname in USW history. What 5 WWE wrestlers would you not bring to USW? Easy. John Cena, The Ascension, Finn Balor, Samoa Joe, and The New Day. Some people would say would get on me for Finn Balor or Samoa Joe, but I'll get to those in a second. John Cena, just because he's not what you want in a USW wrestler, doesn't look like he is. The best he has going for him is the fact that he can talk on the microphone. But the fact that he has such a PG gimmick and character just does not sit well with the WWE. Well, I'm sorry, with USW, and that's pretty much the same reason for what I'll get to with the New Day. The Ascension, just because USW's distinct tag team would be something along the lines of 2 random performers who mold well into a tag team and could be very convincing as legit partnership. And the Ascension, USW tag teams just don't necessarily have a gimmick, and the Ascension do, and they just wouldn't fit well with USW. Finn Balor, honestly, he fits the mold perfectly. He's very aware on the microphone. Great in ring performance. Honestly, I wouldn't bring him down to USW because Seth has that character. Weiler has that character. Demonic, Morbid has a character. Demonic, evil, kind of like sinister characters. That would just be another one too many. Samoa Joe, not for his appearance, not for his in-ring ability, not for his microphone skills, not for his character, just for the fact that there's already too many big guys in there. Alexander Rodden, Philip Akron, Chris Ross, Blaine North, Wakeman. Too many big guys you have overall in a main event picture. And the New Day, just because even though they're entertaining, even though they have a great character, even though they have what USW looks for in a competitor, uh, both in both in both in um what was I saying? What USW looks for, both in what was I gonna say? Oh, in appearance and in wrestling ability, great on the microphone. It's just their character would not mold well with USW or programming or with the roster. Again, most tag teams don't have a gimmick, and while the New Day does, and while it could work in USW, it's just not the ideal gimmick that USW would look for. I mean, they could make an exception to a tag team with a gimmick. However, it's just not. The New Day just could not get over in USW. USW is more for hardcore fans, not for entertainment. Even though it does show for in uh, the direction that USW is currently heading in. Best thing about USW so far in the year of 2016, Call to Greatness 11, without a doubt. Best pay-per-view of the year, best matches of the year, biggest card of the year, most stacked card of the year. Overall, great show. One of the best Call to Greatnesses of all time, and really nothing this year compares to what Call to Greatness 11 was. So there's that. What is the worst part of having a Sunday wrestling pay-per-view? I would say the time slot. Usually it's anywhere from 8 to 11 or 7 to 11, depending on what pay-per-view it is. Excuse me. But the time slot hurts so much. So many prime time television shows are on Sunday nights. As a matter of fact, some shows that are on Sunday nights that I watched or have watched, The Walking Dead from 9 to 10. And had I, said something bad about it, Brendan Buzak or Jess Solnick or Tristan Charlo or Devin Griffin would just punch me in the face. So I'm going to leave it at that. But The Royals from 10 to 11. I love that show with a passion. The Talking Dead from 10 to 11 because, I like to watch, people talk about shit. Moving on. But honestly, Sunday night television primetime Sunday television holds some of the most interesting shows, some of the best time slots, some of the most open time slots, and you know what? It really burdens a lot of people when it comes down to, I'm a wrestling fan, but, I'm a Walking Dead fan as well. I'm a Sons of Anarchy fan, or I'm a Royals fan. Or, I'm sorry, I'm a fan of the Royals, or any television show in general. It just becomes a hassle missing that because you're watching a WWE or USW pay-per-view or a TNA pay-per-view that you may not be able to go ahead and watch afterwards or at a later time. So the time slot and the time frame for a Sunday wrestling pay-per-view or event is probably the most hassling thing about a Sunday wrestling pay-per-view or Sunday wrestling event overall. What is the best wrestling entrance in the WWE, in TNA, and in USW? In WWE, The New Day. In TNA, Jeff Hardy. And in USW, Seth. The New Day, just with the fact that, the whole city name so-and-so here. Put your hands together and clap for your world-famous two-time champs and feel the power. It's a new day. Yes, it is. that shit. And then when they get into the ring, it's like your WWE World Tag Team Champions. Their entrance is so interesting. It's so different from what WWE has nowadays, and from every other entrance that WWE has. It's just so different, so unique. It fits the New Day so well, and they make it work. And that's the reason for why they have the best wrestling entrance in the WWE. Jeff Hardy in TNA, just because of the sole fact that he's so charismatic when he walks out of the ring. He's always got the paint on his hands, and he's wiping his face with it. He's getting all the paint on his face, or he has his face paint, and his entrance is so his entrance is just so timed and recite. I'm sorry, and so on time, and so time. I'm sorry, so timed, and so just overall in general plotted ahead. I don't know what to say. It's so interesting, so entertaining. And it's something different from what usual TNA entrances have. The Bromance would be a close second, but that's that. And Seth in USW, just because the way he holds himself, the way he walks to the ring, all demonic, all timed, all plotted out. Getting into the ring, honestly, looking like an imposing figure. It works. It works overall, and things about USW entrances. There's that. Experienced USW wrestlers would you release? So not any performer like Samuel North or Blaine North or whatever. I would go with the three obvious answers: George Martin, Capital, and Indigo Child and Chain Reaction. George Martin, because he's never going to get anywhere as a singles performer. After breaking up his team with his brother Alex Martin and going to a team with Paul Orlando, it doesn't work. He's not going to get a singles run that he necessarily does deserve. So it's time to cut your losses short and head elsewhere. Same with Capital. He's not getting anywhere else as a singles wrestler. And if he does get put in the World Championship picture or the main event picture, great, good for him. But you know what? If it's going to be like, he can't be in the World Championship picture or the main event picture all the time. So if he can't make it work outside of the main event picture or the World Championship picture or the USW Championship picture, then he should find something elsewhere, something where he can work and something where it works well for him. And Chain Reaction, just because Indigo Reaction. Indigo Reaction. God damn it. Indigo Child. I'm sorry. Indigo Child and Chain Reaction, or Indigo Reaction. Sorry. Just because of the sole fact that neither Chain Reaction nor Indigo Child ever really got anywhere in singles competition, and it seems as though that's going to stay the same post their tag team, which seems to be splitting apart. They keep kind of teasing it on USW programming, but they're not going to get very far, and I wouldn't put it past them to just leave. Anyway, best tag teams in USW history. I've got three answers right here. The Martin brothers, Alex Martin and George Martin, Switchblade and Blade, and Ezra Hills and Benny Franklin. Easy. Ezra Hills and Benny Franklin, the most recent. The Martin brothers, the most memorable, and Switchblade and Blade for the earlier points of USW. Who is better, Zach Hardy in USW or John Cena in the WWE? And I'll go with John Cena in the WWE. Because while we both may have been injury plagued in the past, we both may be top performers, John Cena's on a higher stage. He's on a higher pay level. He's regarded higher. He's getting more recognition. John Cena in the WWE is just more successful overall than Zach Hardy in USW, or even Whacked Out Wrestling for that case. Excuse me. Final question, and I say the best for last. Would WWE treat the Zach Hardy character well? And would I, Zach Hardy, make it in the WWE? And I'm going to say both yes and no. The reason why I say no is because I'm not what Vince McMahon looks for. While I may have been toned and conditioned a couple of years ago, may have had abs. I may have had, strong muscles. I may have benched 500 pounds, so and so. I'm not anymore. I mean, I could be, but I'm just not. I'm not lean. I'm not muscular. I'm not the bodybuilding image that Vince McMahon likes. And I'm not tall either, so I don't have that going for me either. Anyway, I just don't think Vince McMahon would treat me to the right stature that I should be treated as with the character. Not myself personally, but as the Zach Hardy character. And yes, because I am very capable of performing at a high standard. I can perform well in the ring, well on the microphone. I can hold a great gimmick. I can hold a great character. I can make it all work. And my overall in-ring ability and microphone ability and overall relatability to the audience, would be great. Seeing me come out, with as a guy with, my regular, you know, tank top or muscle shirt, whatever, t-shirt maybe, my jeans, and my work boots, or sneakers, whatever I'd wear, it just be more relatable to the WWE crowd overall because it'd be like, hey, I dress like him, or he looks like me. It'd be something along those lines, and I'd relate to the WWE audience and crowd. And honestly, that could be what propels me to the front of the line or higher up in regards to WWE's standard, and could possibly force Vince McMahon to take me as a serious threat to the roster. Well, guys, thank you. That is all the questions. That's all we have for the Hardyac Wrestling Podcast number 6. Thank you all for watching. We will be back at the end of June for episode 7 of the Hardyac Wrestling Podcast, monthly Hardyac Wrestling Podcast. And I'm glad that you all tuned in. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions for the Hardyac Wrestling Podcast, wrestling related, or any non-wrestling related questions for the Hardyac Questions and Answers series, please either send them to unitards@gmail.com. Whoops, my bad. Hold on. Either send them to unitards@gmail.com. That's unitards with 2 Z's at the end @gmail.com. Send them to me on Twitter @ZacharySera, ZACHARYSERA, as you see at the bottom. Or you can leave them in the YouTube comments below. And either way you send them, I will get to them in a future episode of either the Hardyac Question and Answer series or the Hardyac Wrestling Podcast. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Remember to like, favorite, and subscribe for more. I'm Zach Hardy, signing off.